And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, where we cover the latest news and trends in the NFL because it is week one. So go ahead and check out our latest episode covering the first weekend in the NFL. It's going to be done by our good friends at the Lakers Fast Break who stopped by to talk to me. So go ahead and check that out today for all you fantasy football geeks out there to get the latest news, tidbits, and help on your fantasy football league. Plus, also, I said Lakers Fast Break. We cover the world of the NBA like no other. Check out as we're currently in the process of knocking out all 30 NBA teams with team previews with experts from all around the world talking about the NBA. So go ahead. We're covering, and we're just about finishing up this week, the Eastern Conference. So go ahead and check out all of our previews and our team reviews of upcoming season for these Eastern Conference teams by going ahead and checking it out today at the Lakers Fast Break on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Plus also, of course, right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every day. Of course, right there at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. Of course, twice a week wherever you get your podcasts. And we had a great conversation, Josh Peterson and I, earlier this week. We'll elaborate more on that with Melinda here in a little bit on Starfield and how well it's doing in its first few days out of the box. Plus, Baldur's Gate 3 and how it's doing now on a console on the PlayStation. So we'll go ahead and talk about that coming up in a bit. So stay tuned for that. Plus also as well, of course, Vampires and Vitae. Please go ahead and check out Vampires and Vitae wherever you get your podcasts or subscribe today on YouTube. Wild Beyond the Witchlight, go ahead and check that out today as well, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, on YouTube. And subscribe today on the Pop Culture Cosmos to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the Pop Culture Cosmos, the PCC Multiverse, the State of Pro Wrestling, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and more. So go ahead, and you can only know about this unless you get the updates because you'll be subscribed. So subscribe today to us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, indeed. But I tell you what, it's a great, great day for pop culture and Star Trek fans, as we'll elaborate on. And speaking of Star Trek, I wouldn't be here today without a good friend indeed. She is our own master of all Trekkies. She sees four lights. It is a good friend indeed. You got to go ahead and check her out today when she's part of Vampires Vitae, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and anything that she's up to out there in the universe of media. It is Melinda Barkhouse Ross. And Melinda, great to have you here. I hope you're getting all the great stuff I'm sending you on emails from our good friends at Free League, who rock, by the way. So glad to have them still a part of our lives, sending us all these sneak peeks and stuff like that. Just want to make sure they're coming your way, my friend.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. I just haven't had a chance to download all of those goodies that you've sent. There's been a few emails this week that have had stuff from Free League Publishing attached to it. So very cool.
And I heard a little birdie that the Happy Hoarder, run by a certain Josh Peterson, wants to go ahead and get some products for his customers from Free League. So I'm hoping he'll be able to arrange that. So he'll provide a lot of good things that he can sell for you at happyhoardercollectibles.com. But I tell you what, it's a great episode. Like I mentioned, we're going to be talking Star Trek. Also, we're going to be talking a lot of good things about Starfield. A lot of space stuff going on today. Baldur's Gate 3, a lot of RPG stuff going on today. Plus, will Taylor Swift finally get Melinda back to the box office, back to the theater, back into one of those nice, cushy little chairs? We'll ask her that on the back end of the episode as well. But first, my friend, it is Star Trek Day, as most people who will be hearing this, it is taking place on Friday. Paramount Studios and Star Trek is going to be doing a lot of great things. They're celebrating on it at I think it's StarTrekDay.com, but also Paramount side, and going to be doing a lot of good things, including dropping a new episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. They start their fourth season right here. That's getting good reviews so far. So they're dropping their first episode there, which I actually absolutely love the show. But they're also bringing out Star Trek short treks, really short treks, little mini movies, as it were. They're going to be there from their animation studios right there. So they're going to be sending that out and putting that out on StarTrekDay.com. Your thoughts on all the celebration that's going to be going on as far as the 57th anniversary of the first time human beings laid their eyes on Star Trek?
We've come a long way from that campy original series.
I still have a great place in my heart. When I
Oh,
saw it,
forever will, yeah.
and I was one of those people that in the, I guess I don't want to say mid 70s, probably late 70s, on back on my black and white TV,
Hmm.
got a chance to see it in reruns on my local Southern California station, Channel 13, and then Channel 5. They both had it on there as far as repeats, and got me hooked just like it did. I mean, that's the reason why we are here today. It's not because of the original series and its original run. It's because of the original series after its original run took off like gangbusters in syndication, repeats for years. Like I Love Lucy is like the all-time watch show. Star Trek isn't too far behind.
And Lucille Ball is actually the reason why Star Trek stayed on TV
That's
for a
right.
while. It's a weird
But she's
tie-in
the reason
between
why
the
it
two
got
shows.
started, because of
Yeah.
Desilu.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
fantastic. I love all of that kind of, random television history that exists out there. It's really incredible when you start to pull back that curtain a little bit and see just how much Hollywood works inside of Hollywood. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I remember if you read the articles or that really tell the history or the synergy between Lucille Ball and Star Trek, that
Hmm.
strange, like you said, coincidence or the reasons why that they're connected to each other, strange connections on why that it is what it is. They said that she really didn't, according to the reports, didn't fully grasp the concept, because it's really at that point in time really hard to go ahead and explain to people what you had in mind.
Yeah.
But Gene Roddenberry, he was, I guess, was just so convincing, at that point in time, is so passionate about the concept of Star Trek that it sold. That's what sold Lucille Ball. That's what really helped Desilu to help support and eventually finance and help produce the Star Trek, the original series that we have such an affinity for these days.
Yeah. It's just really cool history. And if you don't know about it, you should look it up and you should learn about it on Star Trek Day.
Absolutely. But great way to go ahead and do so. Again, there's going to be some great celebrations for people to go ahead out there and check out some Star Trek, very short treks, which will be unveiled on the CBS studios right there for StarTrekDay.com. Plus, also, like I said, if you just go ahead and look up Star Trek Day, you're going to see them right there. But they're going to feature a lot of the older characters, some more familiar characters in animated features. So go ahead and check that out. Plus, like I said, speaking of animation, season 4 of Star Trek Lower Decks does debut this weekend as well. And actually, by the time you see this, it'll already be out and available for Paramount Plus. So I ask you, my friend, with all that said and done, before we get into our heavy discussion and why you were mad
Yeah.
as a Trekkie
Yeah.
before we went on the show, just talk about right now where we stand with Star Trek, and how, or if you have more or less hope on the future than what you did before. I mean, is it something you're more proud of, you're looking forward to, and you think that there's going to be a better future for it? We've talked about it ad nauseum over the past 2-3 years now about Star
Mhm.
Trek to some people, but are you more on the positive side for Star Trek going forward?
Okay. So, I mean, okay. One thought at a time. Let's slow it down a little bit in my brain because there's so much in there. Okay. So, I think that the direction that Strange New Worlds has taken and the life that it's breathing back into the IP
Mhm,
is incredible. I think it's phenomenal.
mhm.
I think Lower Decks has done incredible stuff as well. Star Trek Discovery. Um, it's rough. It was a rough first season. With
Yes.
all of the Klingon stuff that was so far outside of what we know and understand as the history of the Klingon Empire and stuff like that, and the way that the Klingons looked, and having them speak exclusively in Klingon for so long. Very cool, but not really accessible to like a larger mainstream audience. So I can see why that show maybe didn't get itself set up in the best possible way. But when Strange New Worlds came along, it was like, okay, here's an opportunity for us to show that uh, what Star Trek fans know. Star Trek is a fun show. It can be a very cool show. And I don't mean cool as in, like the most popular kid in high school cool. I mean like cool as in it's going to take things and it's going to examine stuff about what it means to be human, what it means to be an explorer, what it means to be the first in something, what it means to exist. I think it's really good at examining the human condition through all of these alien life forms that Star Trek brings in as members of the crew, or even as a species that they discover when they go to a new planet for first contact. And I think that Strange New Worlds has brought that feeling of Star Trek back again. It feels like a cool show when you're watching it. And again, I don't mean cool like kids in high school. I mean cool like it's you're enjoying the show and you're entertained while you're watching it, but it is telling an overall story, and it is getting at something. There is a point to what they're talking about in the episode, or what they're doing in the episode. And I think it's smart writing again, which I love to have in Star Trek. I think it needs to be a smart show. I don't think that you can take Star Trek and I don't mean this to be offensive and dumb it down. I don't. I just it's accessible, but it's still smart. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that. But we've talked about about the future of Star Trek before. I'm still sad to see that Prodigy
Yeah.
was canceled. I thought that was really helpful for bringing a younger audience and a younger generation into Star Trek. And I thought that if given the chance to blossom and grow, that it could have garnered a strong enough following that would have helped and probably would have laid the foundation for Star Trek for the future. So that is still just the little things. It's the little things with Paramount that still kind of get me. Like
Yes.
for instance, Picard, the first two seasons. The more I look back on the first two seasons, the more I think, why did I waste my life during those two seasons?
Come on,
Season
you
took
got to cut them a little bit of slack for the second season. You have
second
to.
season because it was done filmed during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Obviously, from what you see as parameters, okay, I will give us the slack on that. First season, no, no. But I will say season three more than made up for it with
Yeah.
everything as far as from a nostalgia, but from a good story line, pretty much all the way until the last couple episodes. It was still very much on point, and I truly enjoyed my experience there. Like you said about Discovery, it's not just season one, but the entire series has really been up and down.
Mhm.
And for all the flack that a lot of people give it, I do want to say it deserves a lot of credit for being the Star Trek that brought Star Trek back into the forefront as a major IP once again. Because
Yes, thank you for
if
saying that.
if it wasn't for Discovery, you wouldn't have and the success that it had at one time,
Yep.
maybe during season two or season three, Paramount would have never greenlit Prodigy, would have never greenlit Picard, would have never greenlit Strange New Worlds or anything that they do down the line, because if it weren't for Discovery and their gamble there to get back into it, what, 2-3 years after the last Star Trek movie,
Mhm.
I think that it just to me was a gamble that has paid off. And again, the up and down nature of it, it may not be my favorite Star Trek series. In fact, it isn't my favorite Star Trek series by a long shot. It still has its moments. it still has its emotion and it still gives you some things, even upcoming in its last season, ultimately, that will hopefully give it put it at least on a good note, leaving as far as a series is concerned. So I say for right now that the IP, I don't want to say it's in the best shape it's ever been, because I think a year ago I probably would have said that because they had all these shows running.
Yeah.
But since then, they've announced that Discovery is ending. They've announced that Prodigy has been canceled. Picard has ended. So it may not be in the absolute best condition, but with the possibility still on the horizon that there may be a movie that they may gamble on again at some point in time. Though I'm still saying it's kind of 50-50 on that. I still think that the Star Trek universe is in a good position to go ahead and tell amazing stories long term.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I could be wrong, but I can't think of another time or another period where there was so much new Star Trek on TV. Like in the last 3 years, look at all of the new shows and things like that have been launched, all under the IP. So, I mean, this could be the great Star Trek renaissance that we are in right now, and I'm here for it. I'm all about it. Let's do it.
I hope it's not. I hope it's just the beginning,
Yeah.
because again, we only have one. We went from at one time five, no, yeah, five series. If
Hmm.
you include Lower Decks as well, down to two. So let's get back up, get going. I've heard that the Starfleet Academy, that's possibly a go. I've not heard a confirmation of that. We'll see what happens on the other end of the strike. There's the Section 31. That's something that might actually be also a series that's coming up down the line if they could, you know, back up the Brinks truck from Michelle
Michelle
Yeoh.
Yeoh. Yeah.
Yes. So that would be the key right there for you. I mean,
Yeah.
there are ideas. Again, to me, it all comes down for if Star Trek can ever ingratiate itself to a mass audience. I mean, we'll know this weekend because Strange New Worlds will be playing to a broadcast television audience for the first time on Star Trek Day. So I'm hoping that people won't just jet out for the weekend, that they'll actually give it a shot, because I think they'll like what they see. But I'm still hoping that the Star Trek universe is still on an upward trajectory, even despite all the small bumps in the road so far in 2023, that they are still on an upward trajectory enough to put the Kelvin crew back in the cockpit, back on the ship, and back out there with J.J. Abrams either behind the chair or producing somewhat in some form or fashion
Mm.
for one more shot at hopefully a worldwide phenomenon in Star Trek. I'm hoping for finally that worldwide box office hit.
Yeah. I I
I
don't.
don't even know if it's there. I don't know if
I
it's
just
there.
I just don't. I'm not sold on Abrams. And maybe that's controversial in itself. I don't know, but I'm just not sold on Abrams. I
No, it's long-term Trekkies, die-hard Trekkies seem to be a little bit abrasive about the J.J. Abrams movies. And
Yeah.
that's something we'll talk about here in a sec. But once again, it is Melinda Barkhouse Ross and me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll get to our favorite moments in Star Trek, both in a TV and a movie format here, because Melinda does have some beef with Variety,
Yeah, I
which
do.
just recently posted their 57 best Star Trek episodes that are out there. But like you said, you're not the first to say that about longtime Star Trek fans who are not appreciative of the way J.J. Abrams treated the reboots. I absolutely love it. As someone who's seen the old and the new,
Mhm.
I absolutely love the 2008 Star Trek movie. It's clearly on one of my top. It's actually the number two Star Trek movie for me all time. And I think it's absolutely a blast. It does what it needs to do to get over to a broader audience. As we know, even though it only garnered right around $500 million at the box office, which doesn't make it a box office hit, it has been absolutely one of the most played movies on cable and broadcast television over the past 25 years. So by that alone, it's been a success. The movies behind it have done mixed as far as the box office returns. So I can understand why that you have issues with that. But it where would you take the series then if that's the case? If you do not like where it goes with another shot at the Kelvin crew, even though I absolutely think they are the best of all the Star Trek crews. Now that is controversial.
Yeah.
I think that you would probably be not you'd probably be justified in your dissension in regards to a possible J.J. Abrams movie. But what would you do instead?
I don't see that's the rub, right? Because now I'm turning into one of those typical armchair Star Trek fans where the answer I'm going to give you is I don't know. I don't know what the next journey
Because
that we should
everything that
explore
else
is.
has been created
Yeah.
in the Star Trek universe has not gotten over to a mass audience. When we talk about how wonderful Star Trek Strange New Worlds is, when we talk about all these other shows, Star Trek Strange New Worlds has appeared in the top 10 of most streamed shows episodes on a weekly basis from time to time. So it has
Mhm.
been a success. It's getting into tens of millions of homes, but it's not been on broadcast television where it could get to an even larger audience until this
Right.
time this weekend. So we'll have to see how it's going to be reacting to it. But when it comes to the other parts of the Star Trek universe, it has not gotten over to a mass audience. So when something like the Star Trek reboot gets over to an extent, didn't blow up like the Star Wars reboot. I get it. I get it. Didn't do $2 billion, so I
Yeah.
get it. But that's the closest thing that's ever blown up with Star Trek on it. That's the closest thing that Star
Sure.
Trek has ever done to a worldwide commercial hit.
I would
If
like to
you can,
see Strange New Worlds get a movie. I would love to see Captain Pike on the big screen. I think
yeah,
that
but does everybody know about this show? That's the problem.
well, you see, it's all about cross promotion, Gerald. You know, if your first exposure to Captain Pike is going to be going to the movie theater and seeing it, and you're like, wait a minute, he's the captain of a series, and then you go home and you sign up for Paramount Plus and you sit down and you binge watch. Why wouldn't you? With that hair? Are you kidding me?
And I guess I need to be corrected because in some way because the next generation was one of the most watched syndicated
Yeah.
shows on
Hmm.
television, so I
Hmm.
give you that.
Hmm.
And but to extent though, it should have blown up when Picard, in that very same fashion you're talking about, came onto the movie screen. Shouldn't have not, but they were mild hits at best for even the best of the Star Trek Next Generation movies.
You could have taken this, and this is all in hindsight, wishful thinking. If we could go back and do it all over again, what
Mhm.
we would do is we
Like
would set it up.
Generations.
Yeah, maybe by generations. What we should do is we should go back in time and we should look at how Marvel handled Shield and movies being released,
Mhm.
right? And we can tie all of these things together. And what we could have done is we could have taken the Next Generation crew, we could have put them in a movie, and the entire movie could have been the story arc of Picard being kidnapped and altered by the Borg. And then you could have come back to the television show that week, and it could have been the next part or a small continuation on from that movie. That would have been There would have been so much buzz about that at the time. I mean, there was with Shield and Marvel, and I just think that is something that I think that they should consider doing with Strange New Worlds. Find that big twist, find that big thing that's going to make fans go, "What is happening here?" and make an incredible movie out of it, promote the hell out of it, lead up to it on in the series, release the movie that weekend, and then the following week have a continuation from where the movie left off. And that continuity is going to move across the entire IP. Everything is going to make sense for people who sit down and watch it and go to the movie and sit down and watch it. And I just think that with the example of what Marvel did with Shield and the movies and the releases and the new episodes, I think there may be a formula to, it's an algebraic formula for success in that way. I thought that was very, very clever, and I can't imagine why that wouldn't work with Star Trek.
Okay. No, the only reason I'm saying is because like I said, you've had moments where Star Trek has resonated to an extent.
Hmm.
It still was on syndication, so you don't know the millions, tens of the what there was probably 15, 12 to 15 million people watching it. Back in the heyday of the '90s syndication, where you didn't have many options. You
Right.
were, there were probably millions watching it, but just the fact that when they went out the Generation crew to the big screen, mild success after mild success. And then you got residual returns as after you kept going on. Then you got a very weird version of a young Tom Hardy. We won't
Right.
talk about the
Right.
last time it went south from there. But
I
um,
didn't hate
j-
that movie though. It's so
uh,
wrong of me, but I didn't hate that movie. I
that
know. I'm
that makes one
sorry.
of us. But I will say, Generations it started with Generations,
Yeah.
which I thought would be a massive hit, and it was a hit. It was
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But again, we've never seen that worldwide blockbuster like at the realm of Star Wars. And the thing is, Star Wars has such a crossover universal appeal, and Star Trek seems to be something on a, well, that's your dad's, that's your mom's, that's your uncle's, your aunts, or something on a cerebral scale. Like you have to go ahead and memorize like a test in order to go ahead and do it. I
Right.
wanted to make sure that everybody knows that if they can, and good shout out to you, Blue. Great to have you here. I wanted to go ahead and say that when it comes to Star Trek, it's getting to the point now that I think that Paramount finally realizes that that's the case. That you do not have to memorize. They're creating shows like Strange New Worlds where you do not have to memorize exactly what everything does. And it doesn't have to be drawn out like a National Geographic special as far as what everything does. It can be quickly explained, quickly thought through, and quickly dealt with. And that could be fun to the viewers, but also to the fun to those who are partaking in this, as we've seen from Strange New Worlds. One of the reasons why it gets over so well and is such a great hope for the future is because the fact that Strange New Worlds, they look like they're having a blast while they're entertaining you and
Yeah.
having a blast.
Hmm. Yeah, the techno babble of Star Trek, particularly in the Next Generation, I think was definitely a barrier. And if I hadn't have been watching with my dad back in the day, I don't know that as a, how old was I? 13, 14-year old. I don't know that I necessarily would have stayed with it. But, it was spending time on the couch with my pops, and we'd hang out and we'd, eat some snacks, and we would watch Picard, and Geordi and Data would go over their techno babble stuff, and we would just not understand it, and we would just continue on with the show. But that's not okay for a lot of people.
No.
There's a lot of people who are like, if this is over my head, I feel too stupid when I watch it, so I'm not going to watch it.
And I
Um,
don't blame them. I
no,
don't blame them.
absolutely not. Yeah, there's nothing more frustrating than watching something and you don't understand, you know, 85% of what they're talking about. And that is a frustration. And I think that is something, like you said, that Star Trek has kind of realized and has started to pull away from.
But while still, in some cases, and in fact, a lot of cases, Lower Treks does it jokingly, but there's also references in Star Trek Strange New Worlds that they do put in little Easter eggs, put in little reminders of the past so that
Yeah.
you don't totally alienate your older audience or your audience that's just built on the nostalgia that you've already built.
Yeah.
It just they're trying to do a delicate balance, and so far in the first two seasons of Strange New Worlds, I think they've done just that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we can call ourselves classic fans. We don't have
Okay.
to call ourselves old fans. We're classic fans.
Okay. Blue Magic, good to have you here. Devotion, Deep Purple, Tears of Joy, great to have you here. They need to dumb it down for me. See, that's again, Devotion,
Yeah.
you're not wrong on that. And I would
Yeah.
not disagree with you on that. And I hope you will give Strange New Worlds a try because it does just that. It does not spend 5 minutes trying to explain to you what these certain parameters or what the certain parts of the ship do and do not do and how it's vital to saving the universe. They just go out, they get it done, and they go out and look like they're having fun while doing so. So I hope you give Strange New Worlds a chance. And in fact, for everyone out there who gets a chance, who's listening to this on Friday, you will get a chance because the first two episodes of Strange New Worlds, season one, are actually going to be on CBS. So you get a chance to watch that here in America, or I believe on YouTube, part of the Paramount Plus YouTube channel. It's been on there, so you might be able to find some of those episodes as well. Also, StarTrekDay.com. So I'm hoping everybody will give that a chance. They'll go ahead and check it out because there are parts of the Star Trek universe, my friend, that are really fun to watch.
Yeah, there truly are. And I mean there's the classic stuff for all of those who, dig the classic Star Trek techno babble. I've grown to appreciate it. There's like a there's a there's a I don't know if this is right, but there's like a pitter patter to it when you're after you've watched it for long enough and they start talking about, warp cells and forward to cells and all of that kind of stuff, and Jeffrey's tubes, and goes on and on and on and on and on. There becomes a pattern to the way that Geordi and Data in particular talk to each other, the two actors. And I don't know, it becomes fun to watch because you catch on to things like that. But I'm not going to try to sell you on technobabble. That's a silly conversation to have with somebody who's not interested. So I get it though.
I understand as well.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, it is the PCC Multiverse. It's Melinda Barkhouse Ross and me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much for watching, listening. Truly appreciate it. Please make sure you go out of your way to go ahead and support what Melinda's always working on at Vampires and Vitae, wherever you get your podcasts, or Wizards and Wine on YouTube. So please go ahead and support those great channels today, plus whatever we're doing here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So, with that in mind, we've talked about how Star Trek Day should be celebrated. I know that on tomorrow during Star Trek Day, you're just going to run around with your Klingon suit on, shouting Kaplar to everybody, including your husband, which will probably free.
Yeah, it's how I'm going to wake him up in the morning. It's going to be
That's
terrifying.
exactly what I was just going to say. Kaplar!
Yeah. Ah! Happy Star Trek Day! Yay!
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah. Then you're going to stun him with a phaser. But when it comes to Star Trek, one of the things that did bother you when you went on the air, before we went on the air, is that you were very perturbed with Variety.
Yeah.
Variety recently published their 57 greatest episodes. And of course, it's very subjective. It's what they think it is. And before I go into their thoughts on some of the top episodes of all time, I want to hear yours. I want to hear some of your favorite episodes of Star Trek from any of the series, which is what they also covered too, whether it was Prodigy, whether it was Discovery, whether it was Enterprise, which everybody forgets about as well, whether it was Deep Space Nine, The Next Generation, or the original series, or Strange New Worlds, or Picard, or Discovery. All those series, which I think I've got everyone, and Lower Decks. I think I got all of them with that. Tell me your thoughts on some of the great episodes that you've seen in Star Trek lore.
Weirdly enough, my two of my favorite episodes happen to be Deep Space Nine, which I admit to falling into that trap that when Deep Space Nine was on TV, it was like, oh, it's too much of a soap opera. It doesn't feel like Star Trek. I fell into that. I bought into that. And I've since gone back and watched it. And there are wonderful episodes. The series really does pick up though when Michael Dorn, Worf, joins it. I think it's season 3.
It was sometimes a tough watch at times before he got on there, and before they got into the Cardassian wars.
Yeah, even when they introduced the cast for Deep Space Nine by having Picard visit Deep Space Nine and the contention between the two captains, it even set it up. I didn't even feel like that was a proper setup for a new series. It just
seemed like it was a feud going on between them, and it was more about them instead of what they needed to go ahead and focus on was why should people care about a space station?
Right.
Why should people, they go more into, it was later that they've started going into the Bajoran lore and the conflict between the Cardassians and the Bajoran culture and all that. And they finally went into it later on, but, they just did make you care right off the bat enough, I think. That's just why people were turned on to it. And I thought it was just the pacing was so slow. In fact, when the music came on, the theme music came on, it was just like do 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 do, and it was just so slow compared to I want to go
Yeah.
out in a ship and do things and see universes and all that, and we're here stuck on the space station. Like, why do I want to watch this? But it actually, like you said, became compelling over time.
Yeah, it really did. And so two of my favorite episodes from Deep Space Nine include there's one called Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite, where Cisco is challenged to a baseball game
Mhm.
by sorry, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was an all Vulcan team, baseball team, crew.
Mhm.
And there's wonderful moments. And all of my moments of course are going to revolve around Worf. He was my favorite character. So there's just great one-liners from that guy all of the time. Worf is actually a very funny character. And he proves it with his delivery of some of these one-liners. Like in Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite, they're talking about like trash talking the other team and stuff like that. And Worf absorbs that and he's thinking about it. And just out of nowhere, he goes, "Death to the opposition." Very funny in the show. It's probably out of context. It doesn't sound funny, but it is. It's very funny. So for that one line, I will watch that entire episode. It's very, very good. Um, Another one is a little bit heavier to watch. And it's the episode where Martok and Worf come together, and Worf leaves Deep Space Nine and he goes on a ship to serve with Martok for a mission. And um, the episode is called Soldiers of the Empire. I think it's in the
Mhm.
fifth season. I'm not sure. I can never remember episode titles or what seasons happened. I just know what happens in
Mhm.
the episodes. But you see a very broken Klingon in Martok. And I don't mean physically broken, I mean like spiritually broken. There's a lot of reasons for that. And I don't want to give away too many because I want people to go and watch it and feel the episode as it happens. But um, you see Worf take Martok under his wing as a friend, as a family member almost. Like he feels like he's responsible for him. He takes care of him. And he's kind to him in a way that a warrior would be kind to another warrior. And in the final moments of the show just wrap it up so beautifully and it's so touching and it's a beautiful moment between these two characters who um when push comes to shove you realize that there's a genuine camaraderie between them. There's a genuine friendship between them that's very, very deep, and they become family in a beautiful, beautiful way. And yeah, that's probably my favorite Deep Space Nine episode. Whenever I sit down with somebody and they're like, "Yeah, I've never watched Star Trek," that's the episode that I point them to first. I'm like, if you want to see great Star Trek, watch that.
Is DS9 your favorite series?
No, not at all.
So
No,
that's
it's not.
surprising then.
Very, yeah. But that's always the one that I point them to first, because I think it shows the heart of Star Trek. It exposes so much about the show and about the way that the characters end up having to work together and an understanding of, I think. When you get down to brass tacks of Star Trek, what it's truly about, it's about humanity and it's about finding that way when you're lost. And I think that space is a big metaphor for all of that. I could bore you with my thoughts on everything, but I won't. Maybe some other time we'll do a show about that. But I
Okay.
just think that there's just something truly beautiful and subtle about that entire episode. And I 100% encourage you to watch it. Please watch it.
Once again, we're talking about what's going on with Star Trek Day and our thoughts on Star Trek as Star Trek Day hits this weekend. Hopefully, you'll support Star Trek Day by checking out StarTrekDay.com, watching Lower Decks, and checking out the first two episodes ever for Star Trek Strange New Worlds on CBS. So I ask you, my friend, now that I've touched on the TV show for you and for me, I guess I love the classic, of course. The old, I know it's corny. I know it's in some it just has not aged well with some of the episodes. I will say that at least.
Yeah,
But I do think that there are some that resonate with an audience that still, even to this day, if they give it a shot. The Trouble with Tribbles episode is still one of the classic episodes of all time.
absolutely. Top tier
Space,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. Space Seed, and that's all simply because of Ricardo Montalban, who you would know from Khan later on in
Hmm.
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. This is what actually, where the series, where in the series and where in the timeline it emanates from. And, there's just the character Khan himself, this villain among all Star Trek villains. You could talk about the Borg. You could talk about Cardassians. You could talk about Romulans. You could talk about uh, Klingons, Vulcans, whatever you want to talk about as far as possible, foes for whatever captain in the Federation. But it's not until you get Khan that it truly connects with you, and you get see the seeds of that in, ironically, a show and an episode called Space Seed. So that those are two of my favorites from the original series, plus A City on the Edge of Tomorrow with Joan Collins in her finest performance ever. Sorry, Dynasty fans, but is her favorite, best episode ever, and it is considered by many to be the best episode of the original series. So hopefully, you get a chance to check it out. There's quite a few more that are still good. Mirror Mirror is a good one as well, and there's some
Hmm.
others that are really good. So hopefully, get a chance to check that out. You can check it out today. All the Star Trek stuff on Paramount Plus if you've got a subscription. But I think with the next generation, I think everybody should also go ahead and, obviously, when it comes to some of the most important Star Trek episodes of all time, you have to go ahead and check out some of the best episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think I would be remiss in not selling that. Obviously, when the Borg first appears as a major entity, you
Hmm.
got to go ahead and check that out, especially like you said, when Captain Picard is captured and turned, assimilated
Yeah.
in the best of both worlds, both those episodes, episode 1 and 2, in the Next Generation. I think you need to consider that. But you're wearing a shirt from one of the
Yes.
most monumental episodes of all time, and I
Yeah.
would be remiss if I actually left that out. So go
Yeah.
ahead and tell us a little bit more about that episode.
Well, and it true to form, I have no idea what the episode title is. I
Okay,
understand it
I'll look
by
it up for you.
quote. There are four lights. But to see Captain Picard do his best to remain Captain Picard in the face of everything that was thrown at him or taken
Mhm.
away from him, um, is so good to watch. Patrick Stewart in that entire episode, just he's so good. And then when he brings in the little girl, and the little girl is, talking about this human like he's some kind of pet that they're going to keep in a cage. Just it's incredible. It's so good. And then you see the power dynamics play out between captive and captor. And yeah, you see Picard broken down to, the very fiber of what Captain Picard is, and who he is, and how he stands there, and the threats that were made against members of his crew that he didn't know were not captured, and the way that he responds to that. It's a fantastic episode. It
It's
truly is.
actually a two-parter as well.
Yep.
It's called Chain of Command,
Yeah.
and is also considered one of the best sets of all time. And
Yeah.
again, there's many. I guess you could also consider the Next Generation like Discovery in many ways one of the most important series, simply because it brought the Star Trek universe back to life after
Hmm.
the Star Trek movies. They had already kind of run its course. I think Star Trek 4 had already debuted, or no, Star Trek 3 had already debuted by that time, and it was already starting to go a little bit downhill as far as the quality is concerned. So I ask you before we go ahead and on out, as far as to the break, the final break of the day, share with me your favorite Star Trek movies. Because I will
Okay.
tell you, I'm sorry, and I'm going to go ahead and say some of the episodes on Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, which we've talked about on the show at nauseum, also get on my some of my top lists as well. But then again, you've already heard that, and you're probably going to hear it from me again later this year when we talk about the best of pop culture. So I will save that for later as well.
Yeah. The two movies that Jonathan Frakes directed
Okay.
with the Next Generation cast. So that's going to be First Contact and Insurrection. I enjoy even the episodes that Jonathan Frakes directs. He directs some of these Strange New Worlds episodes.
Yes, he does.
And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because of the awakening that I had over Riker. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I just understand and I know when it's an episode that has been directed by Mr. Frakes. And I met him in person. I got his autograph. He smells like dreams and wishes that have come true. He's an incredible human being. I adored the 30 seconds that I got to spend with him. But yeah, it's probably those two movies. And I know, my taste in Star Trek is niche. I'm gonna admit it when it comes to the movies and stuff. And I don't always like the ones that have done the best in the theaters. And there's not really a reason for that. It's just whatever it is about the movie or the direction or the story or something that happened to one of my favorite characters in the movie is really what makes the movie important to me personally. So those are probably my two that stand out the most.
Can I ask you a question? Speaking on the Star Trek movies,
Of course.
there's a rumor that the original Star Trek movie from the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
that it's still going, that it's still continuing, because it seemed like it's been playing out so long, even with the director's cut that made it longer. I just
Right.
want to make sure that rumor's not true, because when I've seen it, I felt like I was actually watching forever on it. It was just a long experience.
Yeah. Is that the one where the special effects department just like went bananas? Oh,
V'ger, where are you? There you go,
man, oh man.
V'ger. Yeah,
There's the one where it shows Kirk and Spock, I believe, and they're like in that ship, and they're going up the side or up an elevator or something to go to the Enterprise, and
that
it's
takes
like half an
forever.
hour of them in this
Yes,
elevator thing.
with nothing but the orchestra and big shots of this Enterprise.
Right.
Okay, I'm seeing
Yeah.
it for like the 30th minute in a row.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
done.
We
Yeah,
got it. We got it. We
that was
got
the
it.
original Star Trek movie,
Yeah.
and then it just that one just took forever, and then the fact that it led to just spoilers, Voyager.
Right.
As V'ger as the main villain, so to speak. I thought that was crazy, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't get my 5 hours that I watched it back. But it more than made up for as far as my favorite all-time Star Trek movie, and Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
That movie with its over-the-top cheesiness,
Mm-hmm.
brilliant performance from Ricardo Montalban playing one of the most evil villains of all time, quoting Shakespeare,
Right.
and it just absolutely just mind-numbingly good. William Shatner's best performance ever on film is
Mm-hmm.
in that movie, and the fact that it has a plot going through it that actually makes sense, and absolutely the emotion the first time I saw what happened to Spock. If you've not seen it, it's spoilers, it's a 30-year-old movie
Yeah.
plus.
Yeah.
Come on.
Hey, there are
So
people out there who are discovering it because you and I talk about it so much.
well,
So
Star Trek 3 is the search for Spock, so that tells you exactly something happened to Spock in the second one. So I will tell
we'll be
you,
vague about it. Be vague about it.
yes, but Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, and then after that, it is the Star Trek reboot. I know you said you don't have an affinity for it, but what it did for bringing back to life and giving people Paramount the idea that they could resell and repackage Star Trek, period.
Mhm.
I'm thankful for that, and I thought that was just definitely it's a fast moving roller coaster ride, and I love it. I absolutely
Yeah.
love it. I know it's not for every Trekkie out there because it kind of throws a little bit to the wayside as far as what the Trek universe is about. But then again, the Star Trek universe today is doing the same thing, as I've DM'd you several times this season in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. So
Yeah.
whatever issues people have with JJ Abrams for like eschewing some of the issues and things that made Star Trek for people good, they got to go ahead and be fair and say the same thing about what's going on now, and can't say they love Star Trek Strange New Worlds because they're doing the same thing. So I will say my movies for me are Star Trek to the Wrath of Khan, then the Star Trek reboot. I like Into Darkness as my number three, but
Mhm.
there's a steep drop off as far as the movies are concerned. The movies for me have been very much hit or miss. Generations was okay. Star Trek 3 was not okay. Star Trek 5, it's like the Indiana Jones movies. You know, you got to make
Yeah,
sure you check out the number. Back in the old days, if it was an odd number, people would know it would be a bad one. If it was an even number, they'd probably go and see it. So, yeah, those are pretty much my summations on the movies. But the Star Trek to the Wrath of Khan and the Star Trek reboot are the ones I would recommend the most.
that's fair. And I do want to give a couple of honorable mentions to a couple of episodes. I know we're on movies, but I mean, all of the stuff is coming back. There's an episode, it's early in the seasons. It's like season 3, maybe 4, I think. And it's an episode where everyone on the crew starts to regress. So Picard starts to revert to a caveman. You see the origins of the Klingon species. You see the origins of the Betazoids and all of that kind of stuff. Just a really interesting, neat, very spooky actually episode. There's a lot of jump scares in that one. It got me every single time. It still does. And there's one that was on the variety list. I agree that it should be on the list, but I thought it should be much higher than 38. And that's an episode called Cupid. And you will know which one I'm talking about because it's a meme, and it's the one where they are taken to a like a Robin Hood kind of thing, and Worf delivers the forever line that will be quoted by Star Trek fans: "I am not a merry man." Fantastic. Give that one, even just for that one line delivery, give it some time. It deserves it.
I'll tell you what, though, if you get a chance to go ahead and share your thoughts on the Star Trek universe, we would love to hear it.
Mhm.
It is Star Trek Day coming this Friday, the day that this airs. So it's our tribute to Star Trek. Hopefully, you have some great Star Trek memories. I know that some out there in our audience, they were really kind of, yeah, about Star Trek. They need to dumb it down, and that's not a bad complaint at all.
Yeah.
I think that the future is strong, that they are going to try and make it more commercially viable for an audience out there. So the future, I still think, looks good for Star Trek. What are your thoughts and memories of Star Trek? Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, we babbled on so much about Star Trek. There's only a few minutes left, but I did want to make note that Starfield is an absolute hit on
Mhm.
Xbox and PC, amassing over 1 million concurrent users. That's on PC alone, and just with the console added in, that actually took off because it's finally hit Xbox Games Pass on the 6th. That everybody is just excited for it. The reviews 87 out of 100 on Metacritic, even though there's a lot of wild variances as far as the scores are concerned. It is about a Bethesda adventure in space, and I think that I'm going to enjoy my time with it whenever I get a chance to sit down with it. But I know Josh has already started on it. TJ Johnson's already started on it. Jamie Monroy's probably already started on it. So I'm looking forward to it. I know you're not an Xbox user, but you know what? I think that at some point in time, you got to go ahead and take the plunge and go deep into the Starfield.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I am excited, and I'm currently saving my pennies to get myself a copy of Baldur's Gate 3. That's where I'm going.
Well, you need a PlayStation 5 for that, so you got to save a lot of pennies.
I
So
know. I know.
that just came out this week as well.
Mhm.
It is a PlayStation 5 console exclusive for now because Xbox did announce that it actually is going to eschew the previous rules for Xbox X and S. So Xbox X and S will get it. One version without split screen co-op and one version with. We're not going to get it for another 2-3 months down the line. So for now, the only way you can get Baldur's Gate 3, which has been a universally acclaimed hit on
Mhm.
PC, is now only on a PlayStation 5. So hopefully you'll get a chance, Melinda, to go ahead and play that and play 100 hours of that because that has been an amazing adventure. And then get an Xbox so you can play 100 hours of Starfield. There you go. Your life in detail. There.
Gerald, Christmas is coming, so
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay. I'm just saying. I'll say it to Robbie too.
Yeah.
She needs an Xbox. Xbox. She's finally said she
The
doesn't.
control things are too big.
Well, then I can't. Well, you know what? I'm
Right?
sure there's a third party adjustment you
Gotta
can.
get some kind of finger extensions or something. I don't know.
There you go, something like that. I'm sure we could find something for you if that's the case. But I will say both are a big hit right now.
Mhm.
Both are two of the better rated games of the year overall. And if you have thoughts on Starfield or Baldur's Gate 3, which are now out, Baldur's Gate 3 on PlayStation 5 and Xbox for an Xbox Series S and X for Starfield, please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. But before we head on out, I thought we'd save 5 minutes for this
Yeah.
because Melinda has said, "Oh, it's not going to get me into the theater." Well, that might get me into the theater. Well, that might get me. It always says that. And then did you go get a chance to see John Wick?
No.
No.
Nope, didn't do it.
Uh, did you
No.
go get a chance to see Dune? No,
No.
not part one. You're
No.
gonna go see part two? Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
like next year. When it got bumped up to next year, that was very disappointing. So lo and behold, it gets announced that Taylor Swift, the
Yeah.
Eros Tour, is going to be in a celluloid movie format coming out in the not too distant future. And the advanced sales were already underway. I know because my wife and daughter, one of my daughters, is very interested, and I think are going to buy some tickets here soon.
Yeah.
But it got released to about 26 to 30 million dollars in pre-advanced sales, which I think only Marvel films, a couple of high-end Marvel films, have only been able to outdo and outpace. So your thoughts, my friend? Will the Eros Tour movie from Taylor Swift, when it comes out here in the not too distant future, be the ticket for you to get back into the theater?
I mean, it might be. It might be.
You've
And
said this
no,
before.
I know that. But here's the thing. The Eras tour is turning into, or not even turning into, it is in itself a phenomenon. It's saving economies of the cities that it's visiting.
Mhm.
It's helping hotels, it's helping car rentals, it's helping all of these things that have been suffering ever since the pandemic. Um, it's helping a lot. It's helping a lot of different things. So what's the hype? What are the friendship bracelets about? Do I know all the Taylor Swift songs? Absolutely not. Do I own a Taylor Swift record? Absolutely not. But I'm curious enough to want to go to a theater and probably get caught up in the enthusiasm of the crowd and act a fool in a theater. Because you're lying to yourself if you don't think that there's going to be dancing and hollering and screaming and cheering and all of that stuff in a movie theater during this show. You're
Okay.
lying to yourself if you think people are going to stay in their seats. It's not going to happen. Um, so there's so much curiosity that I have about it. Is it legitimate? Is she worth the hype? That's what I want to find out. Do I like Taylor Swift music? There's a few songs that I could do without, but the majority of them I enjoy. There's nothing wrong with any of it. So, yeah, it might be the thing. The curiosity just might be too much, and I may have to surrender to it and go become a Swiftie for a night, at least a night.
All right. Well, it starts October 13th. It's
Yeah.
so big and anticipated that The Exorcist actually moved it off of Friday, October 13th. Of all days, a horror movie moves off of
Yeah.
Friday the 13th in October because it's so frightened of the Taylor Swift movie that comes out. So I would
Yeah.
have stayed with it and just see if you could try and combine. What was the word that they're passing around? It's like Barbenheimer. It just is something like it was like Exo Taylor or something like that. Just something they combined it to, and they said, "Oh, we didn't get a chance to go ahead and do the same thing
The Extra
again."
Swift?
Extra Swift, yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Extra Swift, there you go. They didn't get a chance to do that, so they got frightened off. The movie company did by putting it there, and I know that a lot of people, that are in the industry are kind of freaked out at how successful it is, even in the movie format. So we'll see what happens, but you gotta tell me if you go to go see this movie because if it gets you in the theater, then I'll finally know what it was. Because you DM'd me like crazy. You yelled at me on the DM. I'm going to the theater.
This is going to be the thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now you're hedging your bets a little bit.
No, not at all. I think
Okay.
that the experience is going to be very unique. I think that this whole thing has become a movement, and yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for an evening spent in a crowd of people who are there and they all understand that everybody is here to have a fantastic time. Let's go ahead and watch this movie because nobody can get tickets. So let's go see the next best thing. We'll put it on a big screen. It's going to be super loud. We're still going to dance around just like we're there. I'm still going to give you my friendship bracelet and I'm still going to take your friendship bracelet. We're going to be best friends from now on for till forever. And yeah, I'm interested in experiencing that. Doesn't that sound like kind of magical though? In a
It
very
does.
funny way. Like it sounds like a lifetime event almost in a
It
weird
sounds like
way.
what the theater used to do for
Yeah.
many people out there.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Is your husband Robbie Ross? Is he a Swiftie?
You know what? That's a good question. I can't answer that. I don't know.
Well, he better be a Swiftie if he's going to
Yeah.
take you to the theater to go
There'll
see.
be one night in October where he is.
Exactly. I could see you arguing with me. I'm not giving you a friendship bracelet.
Right?
There's no
Yep.
way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Time to get crafty. Time to pull out the Cricut, make my own Taylor Swift shirt. It's going to be
Yes.
amazing.
No friendship bracelet for you if you don't take me to the Eros movie.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
Makes sense. It makes sense. It's perfectly fine for a grown adult to think that way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts out there? Are you going to go ahead and check out the Taylor Swift Eros Tour movie coming up October 13th? It's playing in for a couple weeks, so you'll have plenty of options to go ahead and check it out. But what are your thoughts? Taylor Swift at the movie theater? Is it your thing? Let us know. Or are you going to shake it off? Shake it off. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. Well, Melinda, it's been a great episode. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
Yes. Give Star Trek Strange New Worlds some of your time. It deserves it. It's a really good show. The cast is fantastic. And Anson Mount as Captain Pike. Mwah, good stuff.
Here's hoping that Star Trek will always live long and prosper. So from Melinda Barkhouse Ross, Kablar! It's Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself. I can't even do this right with the fingers.
Yes, you can.
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying. Here's hoping you have yourself a great day.